Okay guys, welcome to History 101. This is Mr. Odell's class. You can call me Mr. O. We've got a lot of exciting, interesting, adventurous things to get into today. I want to jump right into it. First thing I want to do, I want to introduce you to a concept, the Crimean War. Anyone familiar at all with the Crimean War? Nod, raise of hands, anything? Nothing whatsoever. Okay, a lot of people don't give attention to the Crimean War. It doesn't get a lot of, a lot of the high points that World War II gets, some of the major wars, but it does have a lot of significance. There's a lot going on for it. I've got a little prior knowledge test I want you guys to fill out. We've got three historical figures here. And just anything that comes to mind, anything that you might associate with these people, jot it down. No pressure, no big deal, not going to collect it, just want to get some idea of where we are, how we're feeling about these individuals. They all do have a connection, they share something in common. And if you hadn't guessed it, it may have to do with the Crimean War. So while you guys are filling out your test there, I'm going to introduce you to some of the key players that took part on each side in the Crimean War. And we're going to go into a little bit about what the dispute was over and what its significance was. So, as we have on the board, the major players on the Allied side, you have Great Britain, and that includes Scotland, Wales, England, and at this time, Ireland as well. France and the Ottoman Empire, which is really on the decline. The Ottoman states in southwestern Europe, we've got the Slavic states on the Baltic Sea. And we've got the Russian Empire. So this conflict really, the key to the conflict itself is that the Holy Lands of Israel, Palestine, and Lebanon are kind of the main catalyst for what is driving the Russian Empire to be angry at France. The French have just undergone a revolution, as they have all through the 19th century, and you have Napoleon III taking power in France in about 1851. So this is right prior to the conflict. I'm going to put the dates, just to give you a frame of reference. 1853 to 1856 is the time that we're looking at for the Crimean War. And you have France making a pretty big power play in Europe. They've just undergone a new revolution. They've got a new regiment, a new regime taking power, and they are making a move for the Holy Lands. The way that they do this is that they make a threat towards the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire capitulates to France, and that upsets the Russian Empire towards France. You may be wondering, how does Britain get involved in this at all? Well, Britain has diplomatic relations with France, which tie them very strongly to one another after the Napoleonic Wars. So these countries are allied through a series of diplomatic relations and treaties and capitulation, and the Russians are kind of the odd man out, and they end up in a situation where they have to sort of enter a tentative conflict that becomes a full-scale war in 1853. Between the Russian Empire, Great Britain, and France. So what I want to do now is talk about these three figures and what exactly they mean to the conflict and what came out of it as a result of their involvement. The first we had was Florence Nightingale. Did anyone have any knowledge of Florence Nightingale? Go ahead, Colleen.
She was a nurse?
She was a nurse. She was a nurse that introduced modern nursing practices to the military and moreover, just to medicine in general. She took the religious aspect of nursing out of the equation, and that kind of, that was one of the first times that you saw nursing in the sense that it's a medical practice, it's a profession rather than something associated with the clergy and with a religious sphere. Tolstoy, anyone with Tolstoy? Tolstoy is a Russian writer. He's a novelist, famous for War and Peace. he served in the Crimean War. Nightingale also served in the Crimean War. He wrote the Sevastopol sketches about his experiences with the Crimea, and they really shaped kind of his ideas about war, about civil liberties and things like that. Kind of all stem from his experiences in the Crimean War. And we've got William Howard Russell. Anyone? He's one of the first war journalists. So he's an Irishman. He's a journalist, and what he does is he increases public awareness about the state of the troops in Great Britain. And that's something that you really didn't get a lot of prior to this war. There's technology that has not been used before in a wartime environment. You don't have the telegraph prior to this. You don't have railroads being used in war before this. So he's sending weekly dispatches while he's deployed in the field back to Great Britain, back to Ireland, and the public are becoming aware of exactly how brutal these wartime conditions are, and they're getting a sense of what's wrong. And he actually ends up being kind of a big catalyst for political change in Great Britain. And following the Crimean War, you have a big kind of upset in the government, and a lot of that has been attributed to William Howard Russell. So the Crimean War, not talked about a lot, but it does have a lot of very significant things associated with it, and it's part of a larger scale conflict of a series of conflicts in Europe around this time that, you know, everyone in Europe at this time is looking for power, and they're looking for ways to extend their empires. They're looking for ways to become more significant and to have to get footholds, to latch onto something that will increase their empire. And this is probably one of the more significant conflicts that kind of puts one of the declining powers and some of the powers that have gained a great deal of influence over the past 75 years or so against one another. So as today goes on, we're going to be talking about, you know, the claims to the Holy Land and who had a legitimate claim, who was more, who had a better position to make a move, and who was more ready to capitalize on some of the military advantages and disadvantages between the two. And we're also going to talk about what this meant going forward and the future of Europe as a result of the Crimean War. So thanks, and tune in next time for some exciting, riveting action reenactments.